Welcome, everyone. I believe that we are now recording. Welcome to our Rutland Town School Board meeting. It's a little after 6. If we could all rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business is approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is staff and student highlights. And I believe we have one of our reading interventionists, Sue Quinnell, here.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
All right. Well, it's different on this side than the other side. The last year when I came, there were no people here, but I'm Sue Cannell. I'm the reading interventionist, or one of the reading interventionists at Rutland Town School. And this year I just thought I'd pop in and spend a couple minutes talking about what we've been doing with writing at Rutland Town School. On your table, and some of you guys got one it's just a little, it's called a quick write. And what you're going to do is just flip it over, and I'm going to give you exactly 45 seconds to fill in anything that comes to mind as you look at those prompts. So 45 seconds, dot. And you can put your tools down. What you guys just experienced is something called a quick write, which we at Rutland Town School have been using in order to incorporate writing into our daily lives a lot more than we have. The prompts that the folks at home didn't maybe see, it's all about writing. So writing blank, writing is, I can't think of it, writing requires, writing can be, and revision is blah. So you're just right next to me. You don't mind if I, okay. So writing is an art. Writing requires learning. Writing can be fun, and revision is necessary, which was kind of fun. Tim, I won't pick on you this year.
Thank you.
I started from the bottom up.
Oh, revision is
Correction.
corrections and additions. Writing can be engaging. Oh, these are fabulous. Writing is dumb. Oh, interesting, Colin. Listen, that is something that happened a lot when we did this with students. Writing is fun. Writing requires good sense. Writing can be difficult. Share any of yours? Writing is fun. Chris, did you fill yours in?
If you can read it.
I was a first grade teacher, so I'm good. Writing is useful to the
Useful way to communicate.
a useful way to communicate. Excellent job. Very fun. And it's just a very quick way to get kids thinking and writing and sharing ideas and thoughts. And the first thing that we did for our writing journal was we got together as a team and decided that writing was something that we needed to focus a little bit on at Rutland Town School. And so last spring, teachers in K-2 and 3rd and 4th grade they attended virtual PD with Keys to Learning, Keys to Literacy. And they did Keys to Early Writing with K-2, and then 3rd and 4th grade did Keys to Content Writing. And from those 2 days, all kinds of wonderful conversations started to spring about our school, and teachers came to me and they talked about the things that they were implementing and how excited their kids were getting about writing and how excited they were about writing. So from those 4 days, basically, we then had a consultation with Melissa Powers, who's one of the founders of Keys to Literacy. And she met with teachers in the summer, K-2 teachers, and then in the fall with 3rd and 4th grade teachers, and we developed writing beliefs. So things that we hold special and kind of give us a foundation for our writing instruction as we move along. And so with those beliefs, teachers developed anchor lessons and are having a great time using those beliefs with our students and developing all those fabulous ideas that writing happens every day, writing is purposeful. I'm not sure if you guys got that slide with the bulletin board, but
beliefs.
yeah.
Yes.
Which I'm going to talk about in just a second, but though these are all the different beliefs that we came up with. So from that consultation time, then we actually had a coach come from Keys to Rutland Town School. And she spent time with teachers in K-4. And we took a look at what was currently happening with our writing programs. And we took a look at maybe where we wanted to go. And we talked about the teachers did the same exact activity that you just did. Kids did this activity as well. And it was, I don't know, it was kind of like all of a sudden we opened up this wonderful conversation about writing. So Janice, from our conversations with Janice and spending the day with her, we decided that our next step focus was on syntax and also text structure, which is coming. In October, we got to spend some time during a PLC talking and focusing more on developing these lessons. In early October, the 5th, 6th, and 7th and 8th grade ELA teachers jumped on board and they also went to Keys to Content Writing. It's just kind of like this huge movement that's happening right now at school. In December, for our early release day, we're going to spend more time developing lessons around syntax, which is great. And then Janice will return in February for day 2 of coaching. So just really exciting, fun things going on. And I just have a quick article. How close am I to my time?
Okay.
Scary.
No,
I'm good.
you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. Writers at Rutland Town in kindergarten through 4th grade have recently adopted new writing beliefs to grow a community of confident writers. The 5 beliefs have started great conversations where writing is a valued skill that is an essential part of everyday life. The first belief, readers read and write every day, everywhere with a purpose, sets the stage for even our youngest writers to recognize that writing and reading are everywhere. Luke W. in 1st grade shares, I didn't realize that we read and write so many things in one day. And Addison S. in 4th grade says, there's writing all around us. This belief encourages all students to see how important reading and writing are to our lives every day. The belief that everyone is a writer matters, empowers students to see themselves as writers. It adds values to thoughts and ideas expressed by students. Dominica, a 3rd grade, enthusiastically declares, I am a writer. Writers collaborate to grow their writing is our 3rd belief. Writers share ideas with peers for inspiration and feedback. Katie S. from 3rd grade said it beautifully. Writers talk to grow their writing. Her classmate Finn knows you can get really good ideas from your readers. The next writing belief, writing is a process that encourages writers to plan, write, and revise. Emerson S. in 4th grade knows that writing has so many parts and that you can change your thoughts. Wesley M. says it's okay to make mistakes because writing is a process. The final belief, writing is a roller coaster, sparked great conversation. Writing can be an emotional experience with highs and lows. Thank you, Colin, for putting up the nose. 3rd graders, Spencer W. said it perfectly. You can be nervous and scared and excited about writing all at the same time. And Cameron H. in 4th grade adds, writing can be really crazy. We can't wait to see where our new writing beliefs take us as a writing community. We are positive that the writing beliefs will help create confident, creative, and skilled writers at Rutland Town School.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sue. And one of what's on that Sue printed for us are our writing beliefs that we have posted right in front of the nurse's office. And Sally Hogan, our art teacher, did some amazing drawings. If you can zoom in, I have posted it on our Facebook page, but it is just, it's beautiful. And I think we've spent a lot of time about the science of reading. We have our new math program that's just updated. It's the same math program, but a new updated version. And now this is the next steps into writing. So we're very thankful that Sue was able to get Keys to Literacy, and our first training was covered through ESSER funds. That was funded free for us. So that was great. And teachers have been amazing, as she said, attended through the summer voluntarily to start this work off in the fall. So it's great. Thank you.
Okay, next up is old business. First will be a PCB update.
So I think I gave you the last update. I don't have any more to update from the last time. So we just know that there will be another round of testing that happens, I believe, in December. And that's all that we have. So we will alert Monsanto and attorneys and everybody in the community when the testing happens, and then we wait for the results again.
Thank you.
Mhm.
CLA update. I believe that Marcia, I haven't heard from the listers, but I believe she did update the select board last meeting or the meeting before about attending some trainings. And then it sounds like it will be a long time till we're able to get reappraised.
I think the year was 2029 before we were going to be able to be reappraised because there's such a shortage of.
So, yeah, so unless something shifts some other way, which keeps our CLA pretty low, which affects the education side of the budget, even though it doesn't affect the education budget, it affects the property taxes from the education side. So next up is a virtual newsletter and email list. I met with Greg Connors, who's our technology director at our supervisory union, and we explored looking into putting together a way for the board to let stakeholders, the community members that aren't part of the school system right now, that they don't have children in the school or they're not teachers or parents, to hear what's going on, to know when votes are, to know when, there's been new information about the budget, that type of thing. So our idea was to try to reach as many people as we can, just to keep them informed and to allow them to ask us questions and kind of just have some more dialogue. So it looks like it would cost us maybe about $10 a month to have access to MailChimp, an account there. We could set up a QR code and allow people easy ways to get onto it, as well as emailing the main email list or email address that's associated with the account, and that this account would just be from the board. It would not be from central office. It would just be a way for us to communicate more. So I was wondering if the board had any more questions. Greg is here. If there's any technological questions to ask him.
MailChimp is a good choice. It has a drag and drop interface for creating flyers and information. It's pretty easy to use. The $10 a month version has a long enough user list that you won't have to worry that you're gonna hit any kind of ceiling as far as in length of distribution and the amount of people distributed to. One of our other boards, the Wellsprings board, uses it as well to communicate with the community. And this way you have autonomy, like Tina said. You don't have to rely on any of our systems. You can create it whenever you want and send it out whenever you want. We'll put it on the website, put buttons for the sign up on Rutland Town's website. And, we could tell the front office to proselytize it a little bit if you want to sign up to do this, whatever. We will maintain the email account that it's based on, just in case. But and we'll obviously be able to help out with any other technical problems. But it's kind of like yours to control, yours to distribute. You can control the schedule on that, the composition, what information, and stuff like that. So it gives you a little bit of autonomy and flexibility.
So Greg went ahead and kind of just started the setup process. It's not officially set up yet, but he did put a button on our webpage for the school.
Yeah, so it's taking in.
But I was curious, did it catch anyone yet?
I have not had the opportunity to check the user count, but I could do that and give it to you tomorrow.
Okay. I have a feeling it may not have yet because we didn't advertise. And also I've spoken with Shannon. I had the opportunity to speak with her, and she's one that was placing in. She agreed that it doesn't stand out, so it's not easy to find on the webpage. So I think we're gonna, if we do go ahead with this idea, we'll find a better way to kind of attract people to see it when they go to the school website. But another thought I had was to put the QR code and the information about it in the next Circle newsletter so that everyone who looks at that newsletter will at least know that it's available. And if they recycle it too fast before they sign up, hopefully they'll know it exists and they could reach out and find out how to get on it. So any other questions from the board before I'll take a motion?
Make a motion to get it going, right?
Put in the budget for next year.
Yes.
And any discussion? All in favor?
Right?
It's unanimous. Thank you, Jeff. All right, there's no new business tonight, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the warrants and the minutes.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Colin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Right?
Motion carries unanimously. Superintendent's report.
Thanks, Tina. I have just a few items to go through. I know that I went through my report last night and just we have a lot to cover tonight. So one, I wanted to just thank Colin and Tina Keshva and Jeff Colomb, who took time out of their busy schedule to attend the VSA, VSBA Fall Conference up in Lake Maury. It was a great conference. This is my 5th year going to this. Excuse me, and this was I believe the best year. Great workshops, particularly around board communications, budgeting, and as I think that's on all of our minds right now, just how we can best handle the cost drivers, the influences, what we can do, within our own school districts to help balance budgets and be fiscally responsible while also meeting the needs of our students. So it was a great week, and I just wanted to say thank you. I also want to, and I know Mike and Sarah probably talk about this a little bit more. So I'm not going to steal their thunder, but on the evening of the 27th, which is that Thursday, they had what's called a celebration of public education, in which they invited schools and from around the state, and Rutland Town was invited to attend. And then the green team, which Mr. Lamar and Ms. Moriarty, our chair, or kind of look over, and I have the names, and I just want to make sure that. So we have Lily Brown, Emma Coleman, Violet Foley, Sarah Minicello, Lucy Bredigan, and Lillian Brownfield. Correct? Okay, and I hope I said all those names correctly. I practiced before I came, so because I think it's important to make sure we say the names correctly. But they did a great job, and I know that I heard a lot from a lot of the board chairs, just other superintendents, about how impressed they were with the work that Rutland Town was doing, particularly the green team, as well as reaching out about how to get more information to starting a similar program in their school. So I just want to publicly say thank you to Mike and to Shannon, to these kids for all the great work and representing Rutland Town and the GRCSU in such a positive light. And one other item, actually 2 other items. I know that this will be a item for discussion on our cost driver presentation, but the Vermont Education Health Initiative did release on October 22nd what their projected premium increase would be for this year, and that is 11.9%, which is down from 16.4%, which it's trending in the right direction, but still it's double digits. And so we'll talk, Lewis and myself talk a little bit more about the impact that has, but we were anticipating maybe being a little bit higher. So that was, I guess, a good news to a certain extent. But like I said, it's a double digits is still significant in the impact it has on our budget. So something just make everyone aware of that. We have received that number, that we can we start planning our budget around that. And I just have a quick negotiations update just for the board community that with the with the support staff, we are currently at impasse. We are looking to go to mediation, so we are looking to schedule that time. And then we are currently looking to set a ground rules meeting with the teachers. So that should be started up hopefully in December sometime. So we will have more updates as we go through. So but I know people do ask about that. And that is something which is a cost driver on personnel costs around collective bargaining agreements. And we are in the process of negotiating with both our support staff and our teachers currently. And that's something which we do negotiate as an SEO, not individual districts.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Chris? I just wanted to also reiterate what Chris said about the green team. They were very impressive. They were lively. They were knowledgeable. They interacted so well with the community that was there. And it was very nice to have dinner with them and, chat with them a little bit afterwards. So we were very proud. Thank you for leading that and bringing them that long distance for that evening.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having dinner with us. then.
They were awesome.
They were. They're so excited. And
They
so
seemed
proud.
excited for the bus ride in itself.
Oh, yeah, because I got to sit in the back.
They were
You
super
were in the back.
Right, because they're
freaking
younger
out, very
kids.
excited. Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah.
All right. So next up is the principal's report, and I can share the Fastbridge data
You
after.
can, do you want me to highlight some of this since we're here?
Just a little bit. I just
Okay,
yeah.
just a couple of things.
Mhm.
So Lifetime Sports, and a couple of bullet points got moved around. I apologize. On the board copy for some reason. So Lifetime Sports, a survey was sent to families this year. This will be our second year participating in Lifetime Sports, kindergarten through 8th grade. So the hope is that all kids will be off campus this year. So the options are skiing and snowboarding at Pico, rock climbing at Green Mountain Rock Climbing Center, skating at Georgetti, bowling at Bolorama, gymnastics at Head Over Heels, and then tennis at Vermont Sport and Fitness. So the first task is to see where kids are, and then Mr. Schneider, thanks to Colin Finnegan and Mr. Hescock, they start organizing how the logistics of this. So for 6 Thursday afternoons, our students will be able to choose one of these Lifetime Sports activities, which is great. Thanks to Miss Manaville, she put on a wonderful high school fair on October 30th for our 8th graders. She also went to Wells Village School and made a great presentation. They have school choice starting in 7th grade. So she went to Wells Village School as well as Middletown, where they had like a middle school fair and showcased all the amazing things that are a part of the Rutland Town Middle School. Parent teacher conferences are tomorrow and Friday afternoon. Mr. Lamar will talk a little bit about this when we review our continuous improvement plan, but him, Mrs. Yaddo, our behavior specialist, and Miss Arnold are continuing to go into our middle school classrooms to talk about social emotional learning, advocacy, and just making good decisions, being kind people during that TA time. And some of you that follow on Facebook may have seen Katie McDougall, our middle school science teacher, welcomed 2nd through 4th grade students to do some laser mazes. They worked together with some of the older middle school students, which was fun to see. We have 7th grade peer leaders. It was previously called our student council, and they are working with local DCF to start a lightly used newborn through 5-year-old toys, clothes, car seat, etc. drive. Ms. Manaville, also our guidance counselor, she leads 5th and 6th grade student ambassadors. It's kind of just before they get to student council. And they held their first monthly student assembly for students in grades K through 4. October's character trait was compassion, and November's character trait is citizenship. The student ambassadors are also heading up Stuff-A-Bus through the Credit Union of Vermont. So some of you may have seen that we're very thankful for all the donations that Rutland Town families have brought in for Stuff-A-Bus. And we were thankful that Carrie Clark allowed us to make a little poster sign for those that came to vote if they wanted to drop off a non-perishable food item. So thank you to everybody that's done that. As many of you know, we have a significant increase in need in our population in the town. So we know that that food will directly go to our families. We'll talk a little bit about our educational support team and interventions and needs when we talk about our continuous improvement plan. We do also do a first round of SABRs, which is kind of that social emotional check-in piece for all of our students. So that was completed. And then any teachers that have concerns over our students, they share those with our team of counselors to make sure that we make a plan and touch base with them. And then we'll go over this up in a minute. We have some new trees planted out in front of the school, some filter exchanges for our HVAC system. We had our biannual asbestos check. We are, thanks to Tina, moving our compost with somebody that is a little bit cheaper, which is great. Our gym lights were all replaced with LED lighting a few weeks ago as well. And just a couple celebrations. Our cross-country team, they completed in the Southern Valley Championship on October 18th. The boys placed first overall with 39 points and 3 boys finishing in the top 10, and the girls had a strong performance with one finishing in the top 5. So a huge congrats to all those runners, as well as our coach, Amanda McIntyre. We also gave a shout out to our green team. Thank you to Mr. Lamar and Miss Moriarty for leading that up, and those of you that were able to join them. Tomorrow, I had, and I believe Mr. Sell is going as well, to the UVM Teacher of the Year celebration. So Lori Elliott, one of our very own special educators, was nominated this year. So she will be recognized at the 44th Annual Outstanding Educator Awards tomorrow, which is great. And Ms. Q has also been a recipient of that too. So we're very lucky. We have lots of talented teachers. There's a number of celebrations that I've listed in here for those of you that are interested. Some of our challenges continue to be our homeless families, significant needs within the school, as well as many of them have lost their vouchers. So they are in multiple areas, but still attending our school. So they have a lot of needs, and we're supporting them the best that we can. And we do continue to be short staffed. So if any of you know of anybody that would like to sub, we welcome any and all substitutes. Feel free to reach out. We are looking to hire a preschool paraeducator, and our enrollment numbers continue to be strong. I think I shared this last time. We have 10 tuition students. So we have 10 students that are tuitioning to our middle school, which is the largest number since I've been at Rutland Town, which is great. Any questions on that before we move into some of our fast bridge testing? Yes.
Town of Rutland is, the police department is pretty close on finding a school resource officer.
Yes.
So, well, I think we have a police committee meeting next week, and we'll have a little more information about that, and maybe moving forward.
Okay, I have asked, and all I heard was an offer has been extended.
Okay.
But last meeting I was told they were in background. Not really sure what that means. I can guess, but so
It's a
Teddy told me to
process.
sit tight.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll highlight some of our fast bridge screeners. And Tina, what can show it up here? So we give literacy and math screeners 3 times a year. So I'll show some of this, our data here. So the first one that we have is our early reading for kindergarten through 1st grade. So on the left, you'll see the district, and then on the right, you will see how Rutland Town is doing.
You want to just explain, just for
Sure.
people that don't know,
Yeah.
and colors and numbers?
Yeah, sure. So the purple, those students are at, that's a good color. So they are at low risk. The pinkish color, they're at some risk, and then the red, they're at high risk
Of what?
of being need of intervention, of support. So this one is basically letter sounds, letter ID, and fluency.
Only for kindergarten and 1st grade. So those are like very early literacy skills.
Sorry, I
and what they
moved
can
on
do
to
with reading.
grades 2 and 3.
That's
I thought
fine.
you were-
No, that's okay. So CBM reading, this is for grades 2 to 3. And this is words per minute, how quickly and accurately you can read.
So for this one, a kid reads to a teacher. Teacher has their computer and they mark how many words they get correct within that 1 minute.
So the next one is auto reading. So this is 4th through 9th grade. So this is spelling. So selecting the correctly spelled word, sounds. Can you correctly identify the sounds, and some morphology?
This kind of thing will like break apart words, morphemes like bio, and ask what that means. Different has to do a lot with like Miss Q last year gave a presentation on OG, and a lot of those kinds of skills are in there, especially with morphemes. So it measures a lot of that. And this one is a timed one. There's a timed element here too. So it takes, you have to know quickly a lot of the skills that happen on this assessment.
And these are all just the primary test for the year. The kids get this 2 more times, and then we're able to track growth over the year. and make sure that kids are improving.
And that's our main goal. We want to see growth, no matter where kids are. So this looks great, but we want to continue to see them grow. So as Tina said, usually we'll see some more bar graphs later on in the year because this is the first test, first screener part of me that happens in the fall, winter, and then again in the spring. So a reading, this is where the kids read a passage and then answer questions, and this one's not timed.
Correct.
Yep.
And are these numbers also compared to national? Is this like from a national database where is it getting this?
Well, these two bars we're comparing district to
Right,
to
but the
school.
numbers are coming from, they're being compared to a
Yes, a
national
standardized
national.
test. Yes. Sorry.
It's okay. On to the math data.
Okay. So the first graph that you see here is early math for kindergarten through first grade. So this is like number ID and counting. We may send some of these in emails to Chris to brag often, and he's like, yeah, I see it. And the second one, A math, grades 2 through 9, that's more math problem solving. Again, Rutland Town is on the right.
I think that was the last one.
How long have we been using this system?
This is the second year that we fully used it, implemented.
So the year before that, we did maps, NIWA maps.
Something similar though?
So, yeah, it was another.
My question is, have we noticed the data for K and 1 to improve since pre-K showed up?
I don't think we've been using it long enough to know.
Yeah,
And it's too different from maps to be able to tell,
Of course it is.
because it tests very
I use the same
differently.
thing.
yeah, it's a really good, that's a really good question though.
Or it'd be nice to see I mean, it's universal obviously, but other schools that don't have the attachment of the pre-K, or they're sending them out to the,
Yeah.
if there's a lot of value, I'm sure there is, but have some data to back it up. That's it. Thank you.
And then I think the CIP update.
Yep.
Is there anything you wanted me to share?
I didn't know if you wanted to. I had Christine put this continuous improvement plan in the drive. It's on our website. So it's basically every school should have an action plan of how are we going to improve. And then we work together collectively. Often we'll have kids, other various stakeholders involved in this. And last year as we were directed to dust it off because it's pretty much the same. So really we have areas of safe and healthy schools, and we want to increase student achievement. So the first one for safe and healthy schools, I'll let Mr. Lamar talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so we have a
Don't
great,
jinx us though.
no, I won't.
Okay.
We have a great behavior team at the school, and we plan what activities we're going to do. We take a look at data, especially compared to last year, and see how many behavior referrals there are. Take a look at major incidents, things like bullying, harassment, and what's going on in the school. So we pull that data and take a look at it together. We make a plan for the year of how we're going to address that, how we're going to involve the teachers. We have PLC leaders that we use, and we kind of run ideas and different things by them. And one of the highlights that we've had is, well, last year we had quite an uptick in what we call HHBs, which are hazing, harassment, and bullying incidents. The state of Vermont has legally mandated procedures that schools have to follow if you come across a situation where you have any kind of HHB, we call them. And last year we had quite an uptick. And at this point last year, we had quite a few. I don't have the number right off my head. But fortunately at this point this year, we've only had 2, trying not to jinx us. As compared to last year, where I want to say at this point we were upwards of probably like 7 to 10. So fortunately we have reduced that amount, again, knock on wood right now. And I'm trying not to jinx us really, because I already kind of did earlier this week, talking about it and celebrating with our PLC leaders. But
we reviewed our SIP in PLC, and when Mike said that, I said, don't say that, you're going to jinx yourself. And before noon the next day, there were a couple instances that required a lot of work on Yes.
Yeah,
So
oops, my bad. So hopefully we don't do that again. But so the team meets and does that. As a part of that, we just identified a lot of kids needed some work in advocacy and advocating for their friends when they're in a situation such as like an HHV. It could be anything, but in that particularly. So the behavior team, myself, we go around to the different TAs and classrooms and we teach them these advocacy lessons, like what kinds of ways and what kinds of things can you do to help your friend in that kind of a situation. We've seen some positive results from that, especially last year, even including to this year, and kids use that kind of language that we've taught them in those situations to come to us. Like, I'm reporting this situation because it didn't feel right, which is exactly what we teach them to do and what they need to do. In the elementary grades, we have our team working on positive proactive, groups with kids. So a lot of those early skills, like what should you do when you feel angry? Like, how do you approach that? You get into an argument with a friend, you want the ball, but your friend has it. Well, how can you deal with that situation instead of like reacting physically or something? So our team is working through that as well for the younger grades, a little bit more, a little bit smaller groups than what the middle school would get for what we're doing for them. So fortunately, we're on a really good track. I think our incident referrals overall are down for the year as compared to last year. I haven't been able to pull that data yet, but I think just based on what I've seen and handled, that appears to be the case. So I think we're on a really good track.
Thank you.
and I would say too, as I'm sure everybody says since COVID, even though it's been some time since then, there's a lot of communication through email and social media that kids get involved in. And we're really trying to just educate our students and our parents as well about monitoring that. And would you say it to a person's face? You shouldn't put it in writing. And these are just skills that, sometimes they repeat things that they hear, not really knowing the intent. And our goal is just, we want to help raise kind, respectful, hardworking kids when they leave us. So Mr. Lamar and I always say, we rather you make these mistakes now because we're going to take the time to talk and work through this than maybe when you're in high school where there's just a consequence and you don't get that opportunity. So we're still working through that and with parents as well. Yeah. And then our other areas are, of course, what we're in school for, right? Academic achievement. So we want to increase our growth in both ELA and math. And we're very fortunate. Like I said, we're ahead of the game for that science of reading. And with Sue and other teachers' expertise, bringing in more of the writing. Becky Curtis is our math interventionist at Rutland Town. So we're moving forward with their new Bridges math curriculum as well, and continuing those professional development opportunities. We have staff that all of them consider themselves lifelong learners, and we're continuing to push our kids as much as we can. And then within that, we have our multi-tiered systems of support, which the state of Vermont has some requirements, but we've always had it at Rutland Town. We have some really good safety nets to make sure we're catching kids. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, because Mike leads our multi-tier system of support team.
Yeah, so we have our GRCSU has a uniform procedures for how to approach it when a student flags on those screeners that you saw earlier that were up there. Sorry, not anymore, but those assessments will show teachers how each kid did on those. And then based on that data, a teacher may need to essentially work with that kiddo a little bit more. And depending on how that goes, they may need to then make a referral to an interventionist, such as Ms. Q, works with our elementary kiddos who need a little extra help in reading. So we have that procedure set, and we meet with those families every 8 weeks in the team to measure progress and see how the kiddo is doing. It's more of a fluid process, so they could come in 8 weeks and then they may head on out because maybe they get the boost that they need. The data looks good, so then out they go. Sometimes they stay in a little bit longer, but we keep it a fluid process so that we can make sure that we're measuring their success, and the team is all is a think tank for what they can do to help the kiddo get that extra help that they need. And then we're on to that. So we've done our first round. So we're on to our second.
Thank you. Next up is our finance. Anyone have questions for Lewis about the monthly reports? Okay. Before we start the presentation on the school budget cost drivers, I really want to thank everyone that came from the community, including our two senators, Terry Williams and Brian Collmore. And David Weeks sends his regrets he wasn't able to make it tonight. And also our representative-elect Chris Howland, and parent Megan Robertson, and teacher Sue Quinnell. We really appreciate you being here and listening to what's going on and what's affecting the budget and what kind of goes into the thought process behind our choices that we make when we approve the budget. So without further ado, I'll turn this over to Chris and Lewis.
Thanks, Tina. So as part of our GRCSU budget communication plan that we're working with all of our local districts on, excuse me, education funding in Vermont is very complex. It's not an easy thing. I've now lived and worked in 3 different states, and I thought Illinois and Chicago area was bad, and then New Jersey, Jersey City area was bad, and then get to Vermont, it's like, wow, it's like, another whole issue. That it's very sophisticated, very nuanced. There are a lot of impacts to our budget, and so what we felt would be most prudent to do tonight was just to take a look at, look at our first draft budget, just understand when we build out a budget, what are some of these influences? What are some of the impacts? This is not explaining or excusing or anything else. It really is just understanding when we build out a budget, what influences do we have here? And so we've identified 6 different influences on our school budgets, particularly we'll talk about Rutland Town school budget. First is personnel costs. We also have the statewide health insurance, which I talked about for VI. We're looking at inflation or CPI. We have special ed costs, facility repairs and school construction, and then tuition, which has a larger impact here on Rutland Town and some of our other districts. And that's particularly around school choice, not district students, since Rutland Town does not have a high school. Therefore, they have to tuition out, for high school. And that does have an impact, particularly when we look at percentage of students who may attend Rutland High, who has which we'll talk about a little bit later on, a larger tuition than some of our other area high schools. And that does impact our budget.
So I think it's worth also noting that, so what we're going to talk about tonight in this document is what's impacting our budget that's set by the Rutland Town Board. After the Rutland Town Board sets their budget, we then start shifting our focus to the tax rate. And there's different drivers that impact the tax rate, and the budget creation is one of those drivers that impacts the tax rate, as well as many other drivers that are a lot of things that are coming from either the state level and some of our local levels, such as CLA. But in this document, we're not talking about any of those outside factors. We're just looking at the creation of the budget process.
Good. And so what we've done on this next slide, and this slide will be available on the website, so anyone can download it and take a look at it. So if you can't get the information, it's too small to read, we will have that available. And if you can't find it, please just email myself or Tina. Will be more happy to get that to you. So what we wanted to do was just in a nice pie chart, really just take a look at when you put everything together, just really what is that cost breakdown. And I'll let Lewis kind of talk about, how it's broken down and just what each of these categories represents.
So we try to highlight some of the larger areas. I mean, there's many different types of expense in the budget, but these are the more common, larger, significant cost drivers. So personnel costs, these would be all employees that are employed by Rutland Town School District. So this would be our teachers, our paraeducators, our maintenance staff. And this includes both wages and all of the benefits associated with those staff members. So personnel cost makes up approximately 41.9% of the Rutland Town budget. But I would also add that some of these other categories below include personnel costs, but they're not personnel costs directly in the Rutland Town budget. They're in the issue budget that's being passed down.
Do you give an example what that might be?
So I'll go into more details when I get to those other areas down below. Tuition, that's the second largest area because Rutland Town only operates a pre-K 8. All 9 through 12 students have secondary choice. They can attend any Vermont public school, and we pay up to the announced rate for that school, or they could attend any Vermont or out-of-state independent approved school. And for those schools, we pay up to the state average, which is currently $19,774. The personnel cost is a smaller percentage in Rutland Town because you're tuitioning out and you're not running a K-12. Typically, when we look at a district that's running a pre-K-12, those personnel costs are a lot larger portion of the budget. Assessments, this is the cost that the SU is passing down. So the SU has two main budgets. They have the general fund budget, which is it's the central office, which is business office, superintendent's office, curriculum, technology. So that makes up the general fund. And then the second piece is all of special education. So within that category, it's mostly personnel costs for the special educators, paraeducators, psychologists, all of that goes into the special ed section. And we'll talk a little bit, there's another slide on special education. So we accumulate all those expenses at the SU, and then those SU expenses are assessed back to the district based on an allocation metric. So for this general fund, we took a look at the total ADM, and we bill Rutland Town based on their portion of the SU's total ADM. And for special ed, we do the same thing. We look at a metric based on number of IEP students, and we bill Rutland Town for a portion based on how many IEP students they have in the SU. The next section is SU purchase services. And these are services that are paid for by the SU and then billed back directly to Rutland Town based on, and the other districts in our SU based on who's using those services. So for example, we try to do bulk ordering, or so for example, if we have a program that the whole SU is using, we'll contract that out at the SU because we can get cheaper pricing, and then we'll bill back the districts based on who's using that software program or how much they're using that software program. Another form of purchase services is employees. So if we have an employee that's partially grant funded, that's for a grant that's coming through the SU, we'll make that employee an SU employee, and we'll pay for a portion of their salary through the grant, and then whatever's not covered by the grant, we'll bill back to Rutland Town for their portion. Transportation, this is for our buses to transport students to and from school, as well as for field trips. Debt, this is for any bonds or loans that Rutland Town has taken out. This is typically just long-term debt, not any short-term debt like that. We do take out an annual tax anticipation loan just to help our cash flow for the year. That's not included in this. This is just when the school takes out a bond to do a school improvement. So like if they needed to replace the roof, and they would take out a loan and then pay that out over 10, 20 years. And other is really just a catch-all for any other expenses that's not already mentioned. The biggest piece of this would probably be our maintenance budget. So it'll include electricity, repairs, fuel oil, and then the supplies for the whole school. So anything from buying pencils to buying toilet paper or any other supplies that are needed.
So the first driver, I should say, is just the impact of personnel costs. You know, as Lewis highlighted, that typically personnel costs make up 60 to 80% of a budget. And I think where, as Lewis discussed, when we saw that last slide, it was like it was 41.9, but also some of those staffing were hidden, like I said, in the assessments and some of the other areas. But so that really is one of the main drivers of a school budget. It's a kind of fixed. When we say fixed, that's because you know, our staff, whether it be teachers, support staff, it's done collectively bargained. That's bargained as an SU. We do not bargain through individual districts. So as I said earlier in the meeting, we are out negotiations at SU. We negotiate with all teachers. So Rutland Town, Wells Springs, Corey Valley, and are all negotiating together within the SU. And that's part of just our agreements that they set in the bylaws. And that's how it's going to be done. So we also look at the salaries and the wages. And so when people take a look at just the salaries, and I know when I was a teacher, I'd say, oh, here's my take-home pay. But when we really look at the benefits are an important part of that package. So a teacher may say, oh, it's $60,000 to see on their contract, but they may receive, say, $35,000 worth of benefits. That goes on the book. So teacher really on the books is $95,000. And so that's why we looked at we put this bar graph, you see the blue and then the red, you see that really what is that salary part. And then you can also look at the benefit parts. You know, those two I talked about.
And the benefits, so the benefits makes up about 25 to 30% of the total compensation package. And it varies by employee. So if an employee that's taking a single health insurance plan is gonna be a lot different than an employee that's taking a family health insurance plan. But on average, the average cost of benefits for an employee is 25 to 30% of the total compensation.
And what's interesting is that the wages part, that is something which is collectively bargained, but the benefits is something which is out of our control. We know it's part of the CBA, but said before that, you know, we negotiate statewide, so therefore we are at the whim of the VHI board as they, like I said, this year they're down from 16.4%, but still relatively high, it's 11.9%. So you know, you can see that that's why you see this trending upwards. You know, obviously last year the highest because it's 16.4%, it does impact us. And so when you have that benefits, and as Lewis said, depends on staff. You know, we have people take a single plan, may see the benefits lower a little bit, but you know, family plan, it could be a much higher cost. And so that does impact us. Obviously, when we look to hire, we look to staff. You know, our goal really is looking at optimal class sizes. You'll hear a lot about, I think, the Commission on Public Education. You'll hear through, you hear a lot about class sizes. And I think it's something which, you know, we as a board have to take a look at, as SU need to take a look at really is what are those optimal class sizes? Because we have to make sure that we are meeting student needs. We can look at having, you know, I was 17 earlier today. I worked in a suburban school as a teacher. I had, you know, classes of between 30 and 40 kids just by myself. You know, and you know, it's just students with needs, it's that, and wasn't ideal, but that's just how it was. And I think not optimal, but that's what we're looking to go to. But we also make sure we're balancing, you know, that's really what is appropriate to meet our kids' needs. And so that's a discussion that we have to have, and what impact that may have in terms of staffing costs. And then as I said before, the staff salaries are collectively bargained as an SU. So, Louis, anything you want to add to that? Or?
No, on this one.
Okay. So the next driver, we've talked about this before, just the cost of statewide health insurance. So you can see here the graph, which just kind of reflects where we're at to the trend lines. I think where just a few highlights here is just the spending on health insurance premiums only in FY23 was $211 million. In FY24 is $231 million. So you can see where, you know, the premiums are going up and the impact that has. You know, like I said, we were, you know, pleasantly surprised. I say this because I'm still not happy about the double digit, but when you saw where the, you know, the private sector was around 20%, you know, we thought that, you know, we may be around that, but like I said, you know, dropped it to 11.9%, and it's still impact our budget, but we'd love to see that continue to trend the other way. But
as you can see, 5 out of the last 6 years are double digits. And that has a significant impact on the budget. Health insurance makes up approximately 9% of our overall budget, just for health insurance.
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
If I may, on this particular graph,
yes.
I would just move it to the increases year over year. I mean, it's kind of misleading that the graph's going down. These are increases. It's not like we stepped down. Our spending has gone up every year. It's kind of like when we talk about inflation, we have inflation under control. It was up 22%. Now it's going up off that base. So this is kind of misleading to say, you know, and it's not nothing against us, but like that 70% of our budget is personnel, and 30% of that is now becoming healthcare, which is running away unchecked and out of our control.
Right. Right. I mean, saying like we're only, you know, we're $30 million in debt, but this year only $10 million in debt.
Yeah.
Still in debt.
Yeah.
It's still not a good place to be. And I think you're right. I think when you look at 16.4 last year, you know, it hurt, and 11.9 is going to hurt as well. But I think you're right. When you look at this graph, it really is just where we're at in terms of premiums. It's not, you know, it's still going to have an impact on our local budgets through that. So, the inflation, its impact on our schools. This goes without saying. You know, as individuals, as we stop at the gas station, you know, as we go to the grocery store, we all know, you know, we've seen the cost, you know, the grocery bills, you know, the cost to fill up our vehicles. So the same hit that a consumer at home is schools are you know, are as well. I think we talked about, Neelis alluded to this. One of the things we try to do as an SU is there are economies of scale. That's one of the benefits of being an SU is we're looking at how do we purchase in bulk, so not just, Rutland Town District, but, combining with Corey Valley and Wells, so we can try to lower costs. And it's something which we work, Louis and I work very close with our facilities directors in trying to do this, trying to find ways to reduce that cost. But at the end of the day, the inflation does have an impact on us, fuel costs, energy costs, it's something which are beyond our control. You said, the contractual obligations as we go out to, vendor contracts, we're looking at, food service or transportation with Betcha. Obviously, that's going to have an impact, in terms of, fuel and just, price of food. And I know you deal with directly with both these.
Yeah, and inflation, I mean, it touches every aspect of our budget, because even if it's not direct, where we're going out and buying a product, it could be indirect, where we're paying tuition to a district. So a district's whose costs are going to go up are going to set a higher announced tuition to cover their cost. When we look at wage increases and benefit increases, those are as a result of inflation, because the inflation is driving the salary market. So I don't think there's any part of our budget that is not impacted by the cost of inflation.
And just a number, at the end of September 2024, the New England CPI was at 3.4%. So, and we have the next is just a chart. You can see over the past 4 years. I know it's very busy. There's a lot there, but you can just see like the all items and the all items when you take out food and energy costs. So you could just kind of see where the CPI has been and where it is. But it does, like I said, does have an impact on us as districts and how we operate. Next, we'll talk about special ed funding challenges. Louis, I'll let you kind of talk about some of these.
So special education is one of those items that's part of the assessment. It's not directly in Rutland Town's budget. It's at the SU and assessed back to Rutland Town based on the number of IEP students they have. The special education budget is made up of all special education expenses, and I've broken it down in this pie graph based on the different categories. So as you can see, personnel costs is the biggest category in the blue, and that's at what, 77%. And the next area is tuitions. So those are for students that we're not servicing directly in our schools. We're sending them to outside placements, whether it be a parental choice or an IEP team decision. And that's the section in green, that's 10%. Excess costs, section in red, those are students that are attending a school through parent choice, and they're attending a regular ed school, but then they're also getting IEP services. So the services that we pay to the school for those IEP services. So for example, if a student's attending Mill River for high school choice, we pay the school regular ed tuition, but then on top of that, if they have any IEP needs, we're paying for IEP services, and that falls into that excess costs category. Professional services are just services that we're outsourcing, whether it be for speech pathologist services or psychologist services. There's some instances where we can't service those with our in-house employees. We have to outsource that work for one reason or another. Transportation, that's the category in orange. That's been a growing category over the last few years. And that's mostly for those students who are, again, are outside placements. If we have a student that if the team just determines that maybe they're going to go to Manchester Village School, we have to provide transportation for that student. And transportation is an expensive and a growing category, especially we could be sending only one student to that school. So it's to send the bus all the way to Manchester, say from Rutland or Proctor, is a high cost on a per student basis. And then the other category again is anything that catch-all for anything that's not included. So it's supplies, travel, software programs, stuff like that. The total SU budget is approximately $9 million for the SU, but we do receive a significant portion of that back as revenue from the state. There's a state appropriation called the Census Block Grant. This is a new appropriation in the last 4 years through Act 173. Prior to Act 173, all schools were on a reimbursable model, meaning for every dollar that they spent in special ed funds, they got a percentage of that back in reimbursement. And it usually averaged around a 55% reimbursement rate. With Act 173, it eliminated the reimbursable model and moves to this just a block grant model so that every district receives a flat amount on a per student basis. So the bad thing about that is if you have a student that moves in after your budget is set, you're not receiving any additional funding for that student, but you have to cover those costs. When Act 173 was initiated, there was a transition period. It's a 4-year transition period. And we're next year, FY26 is year 4 of that transition. During the transition, there was a sliding scale to step everybody up to that block grant amount. And prior to Act 173, if you were a low spending district, then over those 4 years, you were going to see an increase in funding. And if you were a high spending district, you were seeing a decrease in funding. GRCSU was a low spending district, so we have been seeing a greater amount of revenue coming over the last 4 years. So where the NEEP has been is at 3.4 this year, which would be the increase in the block grant. We saw a 10% increase in our funding this year because we were a low spender, so we're seeing our block grant increase. Looking at the year following your FY27, we will see that block grant start to level off and just see just the average increase that everybody else sees.
Any idea of that block grant? How much of that's federally funded?
That is a state appropriation. I don't know if any of that is coming from federal. We also receive a federal IDB grant, which is not part of the block grant, but that is a federal grant that entitlement grant we receive every year, which is approximately $800,000. And that's separate from the state appropriation. There's other revenue sources that go into this category. There's a triple E grant, which is for pre-K students. There's an extraordinary reimbursement grant, which is for those students that are a lot higher costs due to extreme needs. And so for those students, you're receiving funds in addition to your block grant. So after all of that, the SU is paying, I think it's approximately $4 million, the assessment. So a large portion of it is being covered by state revenue, state and federal revenue.
Thanks. The next driver is around school construction, maintain and improve our facilities. This is obviously a major concern in the state of Vermont. Know that right now the projected facility needs for the state is well over $228 million. And I know that the projections through the next 2 decades, which they believe is undercounted, actually is $6,352 million around there. So we do have in the state of Vermont a facility issue in terms of we have aging facilities that's we have to maintain, we have to repair, people make sure that safe for students and staff to work in, and we're just like everyone else. So I think we have a 5-year plan in place that Sarah and Mike and with their facility director Kelly Tria have put together, which outlines some of our smaller items and big ticket items. But some of the items that we have to be aware of is that there's a need to replace flooring in Rutland Town School and any accompanying asbestos removal and abatement that'll come to, because that tile was laid, and we know that that when we remove this, that there will be asbestos underneath there. It's contained. It's right now, but
You can feel it in some spots when
right.
you walk.
right.
Crunch.
So there is a cost there. We're also looking at replacing the roof. We're at the end of its age or
We
life.
just realized our roof is in 2025, it'll be 30 years old.
Right.
So we gotta maintain our building.
As well as just the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, the HVAC system. So those are some big ticket items, but there are a lot of other little items that that do add up as well. So, but like I said, that is something which we just have to be aware of as we build our budgets. That's so we have all these other factors, personnel, but the maintaining our facilities is important as well. If our facility falls under disrepair, if we ignore $100 repair or $1,000 repair, that could become pretty quickly a $25,000 repair down the road. So we just have to make sure that Sarah and Mike and Kelly we work very closely, just keep an eye on things and just doing proper maintenance before a small problem becomes a major one for all of us. The last driver that we're going to talk about is just tuition costs. And I know Lewis had talked about this a little bit before. So I'm not going to really kind of go too much through this, but I think what the charts on the next one might be good. Tina, if you want, or is there something you want to highlight there? I know you covered a
No,
lot
I
of
think
that.
I think we covered most of it, but I mean, the big unknown here is we're making an assumption or an estimate of how many tuition students we're going to be paying for next year when we're setting this budget. And so any families that move into town after we've set the budget, if you have a family with 3 students move into town at $22,000, that's a $60,000 budget change that was unexpected. So a lot of times this could be definitely a budget driver, and sometimes it could be just, it could have a budget impact in our favor as well. But it's really an unknown.
And the one thing I wanted to just highlight, and I know Lewis talked about this, but it is that Rutland Town School District is responsible for paying the full announced tuition for any Vermont school. So even though the average is here is what 19,774, I believe, if a local district, a district in the area says we're going to set our tuition at $25,000, that's what Rutland Town School District has to pay. And what's happening now also with independent schools is that while an independent school may have been charging in the past $16,000, but now that we can charge up to the state average. So now we're seeing some of these independent schools tuition starting to increase as well. So that does have an impact on our budget as well. So these are just things that are out of our control. Yes.
Question. And I understand the state steps in and then rechecks these tuitions to give someone an allowable tuition.
For Vermont public schools, there is a reconciliation after the year to determine what an allowable tuition is. And if their announced tuition was different from the allowable, outside of 3% window, then there is an additional charge or a refund.
My question, not to you guys, more for the audience in the room where you guys are going, is we're publishing these equalized per pupil student numbers, right? I don't know what Rutland City says, 11,500 per student. That's how they're setting the so let's call it offhand 12,000, but that's where we're setting our property tax rates on 12,000 per student. Yet they're charging us 22,000 per student. So why are they allowed to charge 10 grand more than we're setting our property tax rates at? And I'm not asking you that, more for when we're asking the questions up there. If that's how we're setting our property tax rates, this is what you guys are spending per kid. How are you allowed to then charge another kid in our state double that? That's cost shifting it to Rutland Town, or is that the true cost?
There's just different metrics that they use for the calculations.
And like I said, we want to just bring this up so people are aware that when a child matriculates into high school and where they go, that there's a bill that follows them, so we're expected to pay that, and but there is cost that is out of our control there. Like we can regulate within our SU. Say Corey Valley, but outside districts and schools, they're outside of our control. So I just want to highlight that. So like I said before at the beginning, this really is just as we sit down, we look at budgets. We just want to make some community members aware of just the complexities, some of these factors that do influence our budget. And obviously there are things that are within our control and there are things that are without our control. And so as we go through this process, our goal as a board, work with the admin, it really is to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible, but also make sure we're meeting our students' needs. And that's a challenge at times, because you see some of these drivers really, cause us to really, consider, some programming or staffing that may impact student needs.
Thank you very much, Chris and Lewis, for putting that together. Does anyone in the audience have any questions?
Just a comment. I know Senator Weeks is on the school education committee, and next month it starts all over again because the treasurer has to announce the education tax rate, which we don't have a clue what it is. I'm also on the health and welfare committee, so I understand that medical insurance is a big cost driver, and we just heard that MVP and Cigna are ready to pull out of the state. So I don't know the solution, but I can tell you that the more you guys can keep us informed, give us a list of recommendations. I know I've talked to Louis before about, tuition costs. And we have to send a tuition, student wants to go out of the district. And that what they get charged is real cost drivers for it. So we also know we had a bill last year, it was H 630, which they call the BOCES bill, but it's a statewide effort to consolidate all services, including special education needs. And that didn't go anywhere. So I really feel your pain. I'm a taxpayer too, so I wish I had a solution for it, but for the more you can inform us of what you think you need for when we go back to the Senate Education Committee, that definitely will help everybody, I think.
Thanks, sir.
So, Louis, did you want to go over the budget?
All right, so next we're looking at the first draft of the Rutland Town budget. So last night we did have an SU board meeting and we approved the SU budget.
Louis, did you want me to put it up there?
I don't.
We can't, right? What?
I don't think we need to do that. No,
Okay.
I'm gonna put some highlights. So last night we approved the SU budget. Those changes are not included in anything that we're gonna discuss tonight, just because the budget had to be presented to the board as of last Friday. So anything that changed from the first draft to the second draft last night will be included in the next draft of the Rutland Town budget. So the budget you have in front of you, I'm just gonna highlight some of the changes. So what we did is we look at what we have currently in place and we bring everything back. And then I've met with the administration to discuss, okay, what changes do they need as part of what they need in the school.
I'll just share the summary of changes,
Okay,
just so it's a
sure.
little easier.
If those changes are minor, they're already included in the budget. And as far as this year's, everything any feedback that I did get from the administration is included. But typically the process is I meet with them, they give me what they need. And then I will include anything that's in there, anything that comes out of that meeting in the budget. Anything that comes out of that meeting that's not in the budget will just be a note. At this point, there's no notes. So total expense based on that is currently up by $379,000, which is a 3.6% increase. Total education spending is only up 35,000, which is a 0.3% increase. And so the reason for the big difference there is that Rutland Town had a very large surplus last year of $424,000. And so currently that full surplus is in this budget as revenue. So the board has a couple options with that to use that surplus. One is to use that all as a revenue to give back to the taxpayers. One of the other simpler options is to put an item on the ballot, asking the taxpayers permission to use that money for something else, such as putting it into a reserve fund. But at this time, all of that is in the budget.
Can you just remind everyone why it was so large?
Yep. So back in August, I did provide an update to the board as to the cause of that. And approximately half of that surplus was due to unexpected revenue increases. There was additional tuition revenue for students that were from outside of Rutland Town that were coming into Rutland Town, and we set a tuition rate. So for every tuition student that's attending, I believe our rate was $16,500 last year. We didn't budget for as many students as we had last year, so that was a big part of the surplus. Also, interest rates have been very high these last few years, so we had approximately at $38,000 in additional interest revenue. And then we had some prior year refunds that we received. We received a prior year tuition refund, which goes back to what Colin mentioned earlier about the allowable tuition. And then we also had an assessment refund. So that makes up about half of the surplus. The other half of the surplus was from, I think a small portion of it was from tuition savings. The largest piece was from salary and benefit savings, and that was due to open positions that weren't filled, as well as open position. And there was a position that was filled, but was in the budget, but was grant funded for last year. So with the full amount of that position had resulted in local savings. So even though we paid for it through the grant, we also had it in our budget. So we got the benefit of having that whole position as savings. With ESSER going away, ESSER ended on September 30th. We do anticipate seeing smaller surpluses going forward. There's still the one big unknown with Rutland Town budget, as well as any budget that has tuition in it, is that can change from year to year based on how many students we estimate and versus how many students actually attend that secondary school. So I mean, 5 students, again, 5 students can result in $100,000. And so 5 students is a small percentage, but 100,000, it sounds like a lot of money. So we can have a significant surplus still if we have a big change in tuition students. So going back to the highlights, so education spend, as I said, education spending, which is the amount that education spending is total expense minus any local revenues. That is the amount that we will be raising in property taxes. So when we start looking at that tax rate calculation, we won't talk so much about expense, we'll talk about education spending. Some other items that are included in this budget that are having an impact, there's the 11.9% increase in health insurance, which is an $80,000 increase. There's small increases in multiple lines that were underfunded, but they're not having a significant impact. Transportation expense decreased due to an increase in revenue. We do receive approximately 45% reimbursement for any transportation expenses. And so there is a lag in that revenue that we receive, is a 2-year lag. And so this year we're seeing that revenue increase, which is resulting in our total expense decreasing. Secondary tuition right now, I'm estimating to be $109,000 increase. And that's due to both the increase in tuition rates, but also our 8th grade class that's moving up to 9th grade is a lot larger than the number of 12th graders that are graduating. So that's adding to our total student count.
We are almost like over our class size, what it should be. We have a lot of kids.
So we're budgeting 45 students moving to 9th grade and approximately 37 students that are graduating. So that difference is the difference that's being made up into this budget.
But if we have 49 students in the class, you're anticipating 4 of them won't need tuition?
I'll connect with Sarah. The number I was given was 45, so.
No, I update on my principal's report. You can see the numbers I update.
Okay.
If you want to take a peek. Got a few kids leave.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, SU assessments are based on the first draft. There wasn't a lot of changes, but one of the big changes from the first draft to the second draft was the special education budget went from an increase in the first draft of 1.8% to a decrease of approximately 7,000, which is a 0%. So that'll have a small impact on this budget favorably to Rutland Town. There's no staffing changes in this budget. As I mentioned, the surplus was an increase of 270,000 in revenue. We had some surplus the prior year, so not the whole $424,000 is not new. Only 270,000 of that is an increase in revenue. And then the last piece I just wanted to there is an ELL revenue that's in there. There is both a revenue and an offsetting expense. This is a new category of grant that we received from the state. If you have between 1 to 5 students that qualify for ELL, you receive a $25,000 grant. And then we're looking at the SU of providing those ELL services. And so you have the 25,000 as a revenue, and then you'll have 25,000 as a purchase service to the SU to pay for whatever services that are being created for that student.
Those are English language learners.
I'm sorry, yeah. Thank you. So those are the highlights. I'm not gonna go through all the details of the budget, but I mean, the main piece is staffing, and there is no staffing changes. It's just a matter of bringing those students back, those staff members back, accommodating for any increase or any changes and increases in benefits as well as wages. Any questions?
So you mentioned the unanticipated surplus, right? And we've seen the legislature deal with what we call one-time money. Some of it came from the federal government, and we figured out how to spend it pretty quickly. Is that sort of one of those things that could be considered one-time money? And then you mentioned that maybe you put it out to the taxpayers to decide what to do with it, kind of thing.
So definitely it is one-time money, and surpluses are both good and bad because if you put them aside into a reserve fund, then that's fine, that's good. It's just saving money for a rainy day.
Right.
The bad side is if you use it as a revenue, then the following year,
Exactly.
if you don't have another surplus, then you're
Exactly.
starting that much in the hole.
Yeah.
So right now, we have $424,000 in there as one-time revenue. If we don't end this year with a surplus, if we end say flat, then next year's budget, the following year, so FY27, we would be starting with $424,000 less in revenue.
Correct.
Which
Yeah. Okay.
so I know when we set the budget and we talk about the budget, we try to be as creative as possible as to how can we give something back to the taxpayers, but also not create a situation for our future budgets and kind of give us a smooth transition. So some of the ways that we have talked about that is either putting an item on the ballot to create a reserve fund, or creating a one-time expense line also in the budget. So for like any maintenance repairs, I know we talked about that, I think at the last meeting, is we know we have a facilities plan with some pretty large items on there. We could put, say a roof repair as an expense line that would be offset by that revenue. And then the following year, the revenue goes away, but so does the expense line.
Yeah, it's a great explanation, and human nature being what it is, the temptation is always to grab what you can at the moment, and not looking forward enough to realize that you're kind of digging a hole for yourself.
Yeah, it's a rainy day. I feel like it's used for something that's gonna be needed down the road. Obviously, roof, stuff like that, it's gonna happen. It's there, but can the money be used to put into a CD, earn interest, something to gain where it sits there? Find something like if interest rates are climbing, is there something that we can do with it to, have it?
All of our funds that are sitting in our bank are gaining interest.
Well,
So
yeah,
we had
but
about,
where is it at? Like, is there a place that I have higher, like where we can earn more, have something better, to gain, doing something a little bit different than where it's sitting? I'm just asking.
no, we have investment sweep accounts with our bank, so it keeps a minimum amount in our operating account, and then each night it sweeps out what's in excess into an investment account that's gaining a higher rate of interest. And then as expenses come in, it sweeps it back in to cover those expenses. But so it's to maximize on the best interest rate possible. And that's why we have seen a lot of increase in revenue the last few years. But as interest rates start to, and I've been conservative with increasing our budget for our interest revenue, because as some of you may have seen, the Fed is starting talking about lowering those interest rates, which means our interest revenue will start to decrease as well.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that last night, the SU adjusted the budget a little bit, and that the special education budget will favorably help us. But were you also including the surplus distribution?
So that's also not in this budget. So also last night, thank you, Tim. So last night, the board approved using the SU assessment or the SU surplus.
Special ed surplus, right?
So the SU had two surpluses last year. They had a general fund surplus of $113,000 and a special ed surplus of $474,000. The special ed surplus was due to a change in the special ed extraordinary reimbursement calculation that was on plan for. So that was just a one-time benefit. The board decided last night to use a portion of those surpluses to fund a curriculum position and to use the rest of it, which is approximately $467,000, to refund to the districts in FY '26 to apply towards their FY '26 budgets. So Rutland Town's portion is $119,000 that they'll get as a revenue refund. Again, that is one-time money, so it'll have that one-time benefit, but then the following year, if the issue does not have a surplus to that same size, then so we need to be creative when we look at our tax rate and our total education spending on how much to offset our taxes with, as well as how much can we maybe put back into our school to, whether it be facilities or one-time expenses. The goal is to keep the tax rate sort of on a steady without any peaks and dips. And I don't think our taxpayers would appreciate a big dip one year, but then a large spike the next year. They always forget the dips and then and remember the spikes. So it's just keep it as level as possible.
The big ticket items that you mentioned on the cost driver slide presentation, the flooring, the roof, and the HVAC. Do you have any approximate costs? What those would be if we started them next year or did them?
We have it in the facilities plan. We did not have the roof in there, though.
Oh, the roof is not that old. We've had that reshingled since the original.
Yeah, I can bring it.
With the peaks.
So
You better check on
there's
that.
Okay.
there's
Yeah, just his word
paving.
for it.
Had it reshingled.
There's paving for 100,000. There's a few different pavings in future years as well. There's HVAC.
Do you want me to add them up? I think I sent them to you and Chris. You're looking at.
I'm looking at the 5-year plan that was given. So there's a few different HVAC controls. There's 22,000, it looks like in FY '25. And then there's like a 30,000 in FY '26.
And we'd have to get updated numbers too.
And so, and then there's a few other smaller items, but some of these items we can cover with our repairs budget. It's really looking at those larger projects, like.
Because we have a larger surplus right now, so that's why I was just.
No, as far as the roof, can I just ask why isn't the roof metal instead of doing, why would we?
Well, first of all, a metal roof on a school is totally dangerous with all that sliding off.
But there's also the things that go on them now that.
Yeah,
I'm just asking.
But that also holds up too much and it will deteriorate the roof really quickly. The asphalt shingles are the only way to go on a roof like that, of that magnitude of, but the shingle, we had to re-shingled, I want to say 20 years ago. So we still got a good 10 years left of no shingles. So the roof is not at the top of the list. There's so many other things
It
inside.
wasn't on the list.
No,
we
but I'm
thought
just
of it,
saying,
yeah.
people are talking about it. But inside, there's HAV systems and stuff like that that need to be updated all the time. You have all kinds of other things. We got flooring that needs to be replaced. And when you pull
Opens
the
up
flooring up,
asbestos.
there's always asbestos glue underneath. So you have to have the whole thing every time you do that. So yeah, those are just some of the things that
I'm
need to
pretty
be
sure
done.
we also got an estimate last year for the floor abatement if we did it all at once.
It's cheaper.
It was cheaper to do it
Do
all at once, is what I remember. And that was one of the reasons that we threw it onto the bond for the upper floor originally,
Yeah, because, yeah.
so
that's
that
right.
we could get that done as well and have some cost
Mhm.
savings. So that might
And-
be something to look at again.
And one of the things we talked about when we put the new flooring down, it's a zero maintenance flooring. You don't need to strip and wax it. The old strip and wax thing is a thing of the past. You know, when you put down new flooring now, it's sweep and mop. That's it. There's no more stripping, and did that for years. So, you know, so
So is it possible maybe for next time to come back with some ideas of that?
So my thought would be for the board to sort of discuss where you think you'd like to see education spending. And from percentage wise, and from there, we can kind of sort of calculate, okay, what do we have to work with as far as how much can we put into this budget for one-time facilities projects? And I can work with Sarah and Kelly to see, based on what we have to work with, and say we have 200,000, what he feels the priority list should be. If we had $200,000 to spend, what projects should we tackle first? And then we can put those into the budget as single line items.
You say this based on whatever surplus we choose to use is gonna increase the
Yeah.
education spending. Is that what,
How
your,
much
is that
surplus
what
are
you're
we talking
saying?
here?
So the surplus is already in there, so it's 424,000, but there's gonna be $119,000 refund that's coming back from the SU. So you're really looking at 544.
But that's not in there yet.
The 119 is not in there. So right now you're up you're up $35,000 in education spending after you apply, if there's no other changes made to this budget. We know there's one other one, well, there's a special education assessment, which will lower the budget a little bit. There's one other one that we talked about at the SU level that that is an impact your local budget that we can't discuss in open session. But if you take the budget that's in front of you, you mind if you subtract 119, you're looking at a budget that's approximately down $80,000 education spending. So
We spent all 420. Now we're up.
so
But yeah, 375, whatever.
360.
Yeah. Which is what?
Approximately
3%.
3%.
Okay.
So I think the board really needs to discuss and see what they feel comfortable presenting to the taxpayers. I mean, we have more things that are gonna go into this that could impact it. But what is a number you feel comfortable presenting to the taxpayers, knowing that this is only one piece of the calculation of the
Right.
tax rate?
So
We don't
just
know what the
going
yield-
further on that one, with Act 127, this number will be significantly higher, correct? I mean, whenever, what our taxpayers care about, the amount that this,
The increase in the tax
the
rate.
increase in
is
the
what-
tax rate will go up.
So the significant portion of the tax rate increase from Act 127 you were hit with last year. The piece that you will get hit with this year is the decrease in the incentive that you received. So I believe last year you received 17 cents, and that's gonna go
14.
down by 20%. So approximately, I think it was 3 cents.
14 cents, yeah.
So that's 3 cents you're gonna immediately get. The factors that we don't know are, what is your per pupil count going to be? Is that gonna go up or down? And that the big factor in that is going to be, did your free and reduced change? Were more people directly certified? More people fill out the household income form? Because free and reduced has a significant impact on your pupils. The second piece is going to be the tax commissioner's recommendation on December 1st for the yield. And then that last piece is the CLA, which we won't have until, it's usually, it's supposed to be December 15th, but the last few years we haven't gotten until around 20th, 22nd, 23rd. So
May I ask a question about that free and reduced lunch form? When, are we able to check and see what percentage of our families fill that out?
the state sends us, we don't see the forms, but if someone fills out the online form, the state sends us a file with those students that qualify.
So you get feedback that a family filled it out.
Correct.
Yes.
So what percentage of families have filled it out? Because it doesn't mean that they qualified, right? It just means that they filled it out.
We'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, I would have to get back. I would say minimal.
Minimal. So, and our,
Can you run a,
I can ask Sherry.
well, can you run like you have, parent teacher conferences coming the next 2 days. Can you run like 4 of your Chromebook computers with the link?
Mhm.
So if parents come in with a station and just say, if you haven't filled out your free and reduced, here's your way of doing it. And then you can get tons of people right there. Run 4 or 5 Chromebooks at a time. I mean, and have somebody there to ask questions. I have to say, we did that at our school,
It's a
and
great idea. We did that for
and-
Infinite Campus one year.
but I mean, we got almost like, I think, I would say like 60-70% of our students come in, get it.
Great
So our
idea.
goal is to capture as many people as we can that
Right.
qualify.
I-
Fortunately for us, that this change that the state made last year to include Medicaid eligible students in the direct cert information is allowing us to automatically capture a lot more students and not counting on those forms. And I think that was probably a change based on, because the universal free meals is really discouraging people to fill out those forms because they're already getting free meals. They figure, what's the point of filling out the form? But that changed because a lot of those people that do qualify also qualify for Medicaid. And are receiving whether it be health benefits or some other benefits through Medicaid.
The principal at Rutland High School sent out emails to all families last week, I believe it was, with a link or a little picture of a lunch saying, if our school is able to provide free lunch to all students. If we want to continue this, we need you to fill out this form. And he had that form linked on it. I don't think that's 100% accurate,
No.
but
No.
but I was just letting you know, send, I don't know, a direct something, attention getting email might help too.
Universal Free Meals Program is a statewide program for all students.
I think I would like, I heard a lot from the town that we need to overhaul the way that we do the budget. So I feel like I would like it to be a little lower after, or at least after examining, as Chris was saying, staff to student ratio and just kind of looking at the whole picture. Because I want to be able to say to constituents, no, we're not overstaffed and this is why. And just kind of, maybe it will end up at the same spot, but I just think going through the exercise would be really helpful. And might make us reconsider some positions. Especially since personnel seems to be one of our big cost drivers.
So we can provide that for the next meeting. Do you want us to look at a certain percentage wise so that we can kind of see what projects we would put on that priority list?
So we're talking about the 3.6 number
No, so we're looking at
At the-
education spending. So right
at
now
the
it's
0.3.
it's 0.3. After we add that refund, it's gonna be down approximately what do we say, 80,000. So, but that's using 500 and 545,000 in one-time money.
Which we haven't discussed about how we want to use that yet.
That's the piece that I'm looking for feedback on, because using that much in one-time money is dangerous for the following year.
Can we look at -2%? Or is that too much?
-2, we can look at that, but that's not gonna give you money to use
Yeah.
for.
We gotta cut stuff to get there.
Well, I just going through the exercise and seeing it, I think maybe a -1 and a -2. Just to see it. I mean, I know it doesn't, it may not be something we can do because it would take away from what our kids are getting, or we feel that is important or it doesn't align with the strategic plan, but if we don't go through the exercise of doing it, sometimes and putting it in black and white, it's hard to tell.
So you want to cut spending? To be clear,
I would like to, yes.
Okay.
If possible.
I don't. I look at the numbers. I mean, we're purely personnel driven, but we've pretty much stripped down any other spending we can. I don't think we're overstaffed at any point unless administration Chris Down tells us we are, then I'd entertain that. But I think other than that, things are kind of outside of our control. I think we've done, there's enough deferred maintenance where I'd like to use some of that surplus as a one-time expense, which is obviously going to create an increase. Last year, what did we come in with an increase? 9.6. Ballpark me out, it doesn't have to be above 5, well above 5. We're below the 10% cap, so I think if
I
we,
can look at my computer and get you a number.
yeah, I mean, if we spend all of the surplus, it puts us at around 3.7, and then we're not going to get as big a cent decrease. So I'd guesstimate once it all shakes out, if we spend all that surplus, we're going to be at a 5% increase. I'd be okay with spending half the surplus coming in to the taxpayers with a 3% increase. I mean, we didn't add anything. That's just purely cost of living, healthcare. I think that's a pretty reasonable budget to bring back. That I don't personally feel or see that where we can cut. But that's just me. And I don't think 3.5% while doing 200 grand worth of capital improvements is a bad increase to show the taxpayers. Especially when you look at the actual numbers and how Rutland Town spends versus the rest of this state. When you take away the equalized per pupil thing, we're 111 out of 122. Now you bring in the formulas and we go up the chain, but without that, we do a pretty good job with not a lot of money comparatively to the rest of the state and how we're spending. Our numbers are great, above average. So I would hate to start slashing and burning to bring the impact of our teachers, or excuse me, to the kids down first. Secondly, 7% of our budget is personnel. We're a big employer to this region. So I don't think 3.5 is out of control, but the taxpayers can tell me differently for the product we put out.
Sarah, can I ask you a couple questions? Do you, how many third grade classes do you have?
How many third? Two.
Fourth?
Two. We have 2 sections of every grade except for kindergarten. We have 44 students. So that's also we have to go by our class size policy. So we need to average, oh, I just sent it to you, Chris. Hang on. 1 second. So when classes in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade when taken together shall average fewer than 20 students per grade, is what the policy states.
Is that the JRCSU policy?
But it's like a model policy from the AOE.
Yeah.
It's based on quality, the education.
Educational school quality standards.
Is
Yeah,
is
you have
what?
to.
20?
Is they
20
grades
is
K
actually-
through 3 when taken together shall average fewer than 20 per teacher.
I know like pre-K, it's based off the square footage of the classroom, right?
Preschool is under different licensing,
This
so
is K
it's
through
not
then-
governed by the
but-
Agency of Education.
But then the rest of the school, it's,
Yeah, that's why the policy says kindergarten through 3 when taken together shall average fewer than 20 students per teacher. So in my principal's report, I list how many kids per grade, so you can see every time I do the enrollment in there.
Yeah, I know that. I just didn't know how many teachers we had for each grade.
So we have 2 teachers for every grade level except for kindergarten. We have that bubble class of 44.
I knew there was a third 3
Mhm.
somewhere.
Last year it was 3 sections of 4th.
That's right. Okay.
Yep.
how many pre-K?
2.
And I know last year with the whole budget thing, I learned that they're all full-time pre-K. hours.
Correct.
So, but we're only required to have 10 hours to pay for it.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, I know a few people there that were saying that, then why are we paying for a full-time?
Mhm. Mhm.
We didn't pay, we all had to pay for
Mhm.
full-time preschool and then daycare. Well, this is a way to cut costs. Why are we paying for more than 10 hours?
Mhm.
Why isn't parents contributing to part of
Mhm.
this tuition? Like everybody else?
Mhm.
Why are we not just doing it as part-time or something like that? Why is it full-time? That's a cost-cutting side to it.
Mhm.
I think that we did explore that last year a little
was
bit.
Mentioned, but nothing with the meeting, but when the budget, but nothing, I didn't hear anything after that as to.
I think
Because we have to pay. Don't
So
we?
universal preschool, as Megan, you're right, we have to pay a minimum of 10 hours per week. So we also, if you see some of we pay a lot of money to other area preschools because some parents, it's universal. So an example, somebody may work in Virgins and they want their child to go to one of the preschool partnerships in Middlebury. So then Rutland Town pays for 10 hours for that child if it's in an approved preschool program for that. That's something that the board can consider.
I just think that why are we paying for more than what is it? That's gonna save money theoretically. I
think that one of the reasons was it got the kids, the full day preschool program, because of the limitations on the size of the classroom, is mostly 4-year-olds.
I know.
And so having them the full day, some of the benefits were that they were used to the full day of being at school. So it helped with transition. Families liked it because it
They have a full
help
day,
with.
but they can contribute to the cost though too.
But I think one thing that we looked at, and I think Timmy brought it up, is you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, then we have
I
to,
know.
then parents have to pay, so they're not paying, they're paying out of pocket for taxes, but now they're paying out of pocket for childcare. Now they're paying out of pocket. We're already having them pay out of having to transport their kids because we can't transport them, right? So
No, we don't transport preschool.
that's what I'm saying. They used to be able to, but now we can't.
Correct. Oh,
So
right.
now they have to change their schedules to transport their kids. I think it's,
But we did it ourselves. I mean, we had to pay for a full-time daycare spot and pay for a full-time preschool spot, even if they didn't go to preschool full-time because they didn't offer, or they only had a part-time spot. Like, we all had to do it in the past before this whole universal preschool came into play. Like, we all had to do this.
How
why
impactful
are
is
we
a
making,
preschool to
You know,
the
I
tax
guess I'm
rate?
just saying, why are we making all accommodations now? It seems like we're just.
Lewis ran those numbers for us last year because he ran the numbers for, I think it was cheaper
asking.
to contract out. No, it's a great question, to contract out rather than do in school.
But that was for full day. We never looked at if we changed our format now.
Yes, so we looked at if we changed, so
Mhm.
right now we have 2 classrooms full day. If we went to 2 part-day classrooms, we could pretty much eliminate a program, 1 classroom and service the same amount of students. So you would save 1 classroom, which cost is approximately 130 to 150,000.
Yeah,
But then the benefit, what's the cost of that for the student? Because they're only, our students are doing well, as you saw on our K-1.
not only what's the cost of
Slides.
our students, but what's the cost to our parents.
Right.
But it's both though, because the
it is.
K-1 grades were phenomenal.
And when we got down to when we were focused on our third budget, the dialogue that we had with community members was, this is what we're taking away and this is what it's done to your tax rate. And most of the people, though they were few, were like, well, I'm not willing to give that up to save 1 penny on my tax rate. So, and like with this, even if everything went perfectly and we're out and we save 120,000, that's potentially 2 pennies, but we don't know what other impacts that has. We don't know what impact that has on the kid once they do show up in kindergarten, and things like that. So
I mean, like, it's like, what happened in the past 5 years? You know what I mean? Like, before COVID, like, we all did this as parents. We all did Like,
Well,
why are,
Well, the state changed it. I mean, it's,
I know
we'll
everything.
be fair to say that,
But we're still. the
pre-K
same
is like
parents.
state funded daycare, but they've also changed the game in daycare. Even if you're not in the pre-K system, you're paying out of your paycheck now, and that's all incomes. So you could have been private paying 180 out of pocket, and this year it's all different. So now you're paying 380. Same provider, but now they're income sensitive, and so this is one of the things we do have control of. We have the space in our school. We could decide as a community, let's just pay 8 to 10 hours a week, or do we staff it up and do we provide those kids full day? It's got a great benefit to a lot of double income parents that can have their kid working all day. Both those parents can be actively working in this community. And hopefully over time, the data shows that we have stronger K-1 because we're providing that. That's one of the only controls we have, or we could shut it down and save a couple pennies, which is certainly an option, and have an empty classroom there or do 8 to 10 hours. That's one thing we can talk about. But I think, we're going to get some angry people with young kids, and that's potentially, again, back to the property taxes and back to property values, why parents are dying to move to Rutland Town for pre-K through 8 now. It used to be K through 8. And back when I was there, it was, kindergarten was still over Cheney Hill, but it's.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just saying, like, if we end up with 3 classes, it's just the added it's just like where the expenses every year, and we're the ones paying for it, we've already paid our dues, and why are we, it's just.
And that's where everything changes.
I know.
Different families, different, and we know where we're at with that, and it's something I think we all are in favor of keeping within our budget.
Oh, and I get it. I'm not disagreeing with it, and but it's just like.
Oh, I hear you.
Trying to figure out a way to, like, the money, like the spending. It's the healthcare. That's
But-
truly what it is. It's the healthcare costs. It's
Yes.
the universal free lunch. Like, do it the way it was before. The kids that get it, they need it, they still get it. But why offer it to every?
Why can't we go backwards?
Yeah, like. There's just.
Make schools great. But what we will see the impact is, you probably noticed too, over the last 20 years, the amount of IEPs in Vermont and all across the country have skyrocketed.
Correct.
We're actually doing early intervention because they're attached. And there's early intervention everywhere in the state, but let's be honest, they're not getting it at those private daycares. They're not having the staff that are on site getting the Beth Coughlin's evaluating pre-K kids. So over time, if we're getting to these kids at 3, 4, 5, especially now that the demographic has shifted heavily with the voucher program, if we catch these kids early, it's going to save us tons of money when they're in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. If we can get them reading, if we can get them writing, this is like the last program we want to talk about cutting. And it's the easiest because we only have to service 8 hours. But if we get those kids early, that's what the state's got to tackle too. We have a lot more kids that you grew up here, I grew up here. We didn't have the Cortina Inn. We did, but no one was living there. And now that's added stress on all of our staff. All these kids that are coming that have nothing at home. And if we can get them for those 8 hours a day and change them early, hopefully they're not relying on the services and the systems later on.
And that was something else that we had heard, that we're capturing more students and being able to intervene earlier because we are aware of their needs. If they come in kindergarten, we're already a little bit behind the.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
I think it happened, it was a year when we had 22 kids in kindergarten in each section, I'll never forget. And I think we had 4 students that were not potty trained that came to kindergarten with 1 teacher with 22 kids. And I at the time I had asked the superintendent, come in and show me how you can get these kids ready for recess when somebody's in the bathroom that needs assistance. So I think everything, the opioid epidemic, I mean, a lot of things have just changed where we are now. And so we looked at preschool, and there was a study from the University of Michigan that they had offered preschool, and within 10 years their special ed costs had reduced dramatically because of just what Colin said. And so when I went, and we had part-day preschool program that was lovely. It was amazing teacher, a great preschool. And I had a lot of stay-at-home parents and grandparents that brought their kids in. And then some of the kids I looked at kindergarten that had never held a book, that were not potty trained, that were really left in front of a screen. Those were the kids that needed those full day preschool programs. Some kids don't, they are, but some of those kids we were not meeting. And in talking with those parents, they needed full day. They also would ask for transportation. Unfortunately, it's not something we can provide. And I know that there's talk in the legislature about schools having to provide full day preschool. That's been a conversation. And I think other schools are worried because you're like, now we need to, this is more money. This is going to cost more. Where do we put these classrooms? So right now our preschool classrooms are in small classrooms. Like we have teachers that are doubled up. We have teachers that are like in closet spaces. We have great enrollment, steady enrollment, so we are fortunate. But those are things we can cut, and that's up to the board. That Lewis did run the numbers. It is cheaper to outsource preschool.
Yeah, I don't remember if there were enough programs for all the students.
Yeah,
That's one of the big things. There's not enough programs.
Yeah, so that's the other issue
Yeah.
too.
There's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. well,
It's a
that's-
catch-22.
Yeah, so it's, okay. Yeah,
I was, instead of going down to -2, maybe just doing a little bit minus, either -1. I do think it's good to go through the exercise of the cut, but we can always ask for more. One's not enough.
I can present whatever the board wants. I just think the board needs to have a consensus because, I mean, we can provide you all the data in the world, but if the board isn't at a consensus as to what they want to see, or what direction they want to go to, then it's going to be hard to present the right information to you.
Correct. Jeff, do you want to?
Well, that, I kind of agree with what Colin said. I mean, that's what we talked about at the last meeting was spend some of this surplus money now and save a little bit for when we're going to get hit.
What's a number, like 3%?
Don't look at me.
I'm telling you, like, show us the 3%, and then how much does that give us to spend?
Are you talking about total expense or what?
Education.
Education. So
Our surplus, including what we're
you're
getting
you're
back from
saying to
SU.
go up.
Hmm?
You're saying to go up from 0.3 to 3.
Yes, well, if we spend the surplus, we're going up. If we use it for revenue, we stay flat. But if we want to spend any of it, including putting it in
I thought the 0.3 included the revenue.
as revenue,
Includes it all as revenue. So if
Right.
we want to start spending some of it with repairs,
we're going up.
then the expense is going to increase, which is going to increase the education spending. So Colin is accurate. So if we were to spend 200,000, that's going to increase that number to 3% approximately.
Yeah, so that's what I was asking you. If you want it to show -2, Tina, we have to cut some stuff in the budget
And not do any of that.
because it's already baked in.
Besides the 113. So
Correct. Yeah.
So we're at like -0.5 right now with the 119.
I'm gonna take my leave, but thank you very much. This
Thank
was
you.
great.
thank you.
Hopefully we'll
Congratulations.
see you on December 3rd.
Great.
It's great to get a head start. It really is.
Just
And then talk
Chris,
to you
I know that you're kind of surprised. December 3rd, the supervisory union will be having a legislative listening hour. We haven't sent out emails really much, just to save the date for the senators that were coming tonight. But we'll be inviting that to all senators and reps for all of our supervisory union districts. And that will be at the central office, which is right next to the Price Chopper in West Rutland. So a little further along this road.
The hardware store.
I don't know what it was
I think
before.
it was a hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I think so.
No idea.
Looks nicer than a hardware store though.
Yeah.
I
Get
got-
you a hammer.
So what we're talking tonight is fiscal year 26
Correct.
budget.
Mhm.
So in the March meeting, we vote on the fiscal year 26 budget.
Yes.
And all this is available on the whose website?
So the Rutland Town Schools website has a link to, there's a board resources section on the top that you can go to, and that will link you with the supervisory union's website. So you can access minutes from the meeting and recordings, I believe.
Yes, the board puts up the cost drivers in the budget data. It's not up there yet, but it will be there in a couple of days. We want to make sure that it's presented to the board before it goes up on the website.
Oh, I came to listen and learn, and I'm in a different position now than I was when I came to the budget meetings on the revotes last year when it wasn't successful.
But you're still the same wonderful guy.
Ryan. Well, you can. Anyway, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for coming.
I've got.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
We appreciate the engagement. We really do.
So Chris, was this draft of the budget, was this what we were talking about with students to staff ratios, was that looked at like through that lens? We have no staffing changes. I'm just curious.
So we have a level service, which is no new addition. So what we do is the class size is mandated by the education quality standards. It's 20, I think it's 21.2, which is around staffing. And so that's where we look at that maximum. So when we look at our staffing, we do use the ed quality standards for that. So one of the things I did talk about that as an SU, we should take a look at is around revisiting the minimum and the optimal, but the maximums right now are still set. We can't raise that maximum, so K through 3 is at 20. We can't sit there and say, well, we're gonna do 25. So ed quality standards, is capped for K through 3 at 20, and then 25 is for 4 through 12.
So the only grade on the principal report, that's our lowest one, it would be 26 in second grade. So
You gotta keep two classes for that one. Right, so 26 in second grade, you're
Above the
above
statute.
the 20.
Right, we have to have
Right.
two separate classes.
Correct,
No matter how old they are,
correct.
25. I mean, it is what it is.
Right. So I think that's where Rutland Town finds themselves in a different situation than other schools within our SU, is that you are continually flirting with the maximum class size as opposed to minimum.
Well said.
Right. And so I think that's where, and you're right, you get to that number where you're at 20, 22, 20, 21, 22, then you look at how do you best support that? So let's say you had 21 first grade students, 22 first grade students. Well, the maximum class size, it says 20, but would you really
But
want
it
to break
averages
that?
them together.
Correct.
It
right,
averages them. So we have
Right.
had 19, 20 in K3 before.
Right.
So you average them together, but knowing like we had 44 kindergarten kids coming.
Right.
And knowing that we may have some late registers in some areas of need, which we did, we needed 3 classes. We knew the kiddos that were coming.
So when we sit down, when Lewis and I sit down with Sarah and Mike, it's something which we take a look at. And I know like last year as, this year's 8th grade, as we had a lot of students who move in, there are high numbers. We looked at how we could best support those students through that. And I know the teachers were adamant about that. They were fine with the numbers being the way they're at. But I think that's just, it depends on the age and, where we're at, like, 26 7th or 8th graders might be a little bit different with the teacher as opposed to 26, 4th graders. So I think, but so that is something which we do take a look at, but I am going to encourage the SU to once again revisit, just take a look at that minimum and the optimal. But as I said before, I think it is important for us to just continue to have ratios that we can plug in as we take a look at, just so, it does take some of the calculation out.
Sarah, isn't there like 27 in Austin's class? 26?
That's our next lowest cohort.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, that's a great class. Like, they could have always been one class.
You can't.
I know, but if the optimal, like, they are just such a good group,
Yeah.
like, it's just but that optimal thing, like where, it's like they're just over the number where it's.
So does the board want to revisit this next time when we have some more updated information? Or
The budget piece.
the budget?
Yeah,
piece?
I mean, that's, I know, I feel like we did shift this budgeting schedule up, right? Like trying to get ahead of the game, but then I
It's
feel like
about the
we're,
same.
This is the same.
Well,
Last year.
not 5 years ago, or, you know, I felt like it started later, 5 years, right? Or no?
Since we merged, November's always been mine.
It's just like, it's great to have, I just don't feel like I have enough information, like, you know, it's like arbitrarily say, raise it 3%, lower it 3%, like, but like you said, there's so many factors that make such an impact on the budget, you know? It's like,
Does this still have the 7th grade trip in it? 'Cause that was something that we were going to revisit, because it was kind of taken out last time. Paid for by
Well,
ESSER,
well, last year was ESSER funded.
right?
We took it out. Yes, correct. We took it out. And funded it through ESSER.
So is it still in here or not?
That reminds me, I did want to talk about DC at some point. Not now, but moving forward.
So Tina's not in there.
It's not in there, okay. Because that, I mean, that's something that
Much.
I have to revisit policy if we're not going to pay for it.
For this year,
For next year, I just think having the,
start this year.
I think we're already there this year. We've committed to DC and we'll know what the numbers are later. But I would like to talk about that moving forward.
But that's not part of the budget. so
Correct.
we'll move on
Just
from that
reminded
for
me,
now.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to talk about that before March.
We can add that to next meeting's
in-
agenda.
And
That'd be
Tina, I
good.
just want, I know you brought up the
Right now,
policy around the
We haven't
7th
had
grade
one
class trip. The wording does say the Rutland Town School Board will pay up to $500
That's my plan. See that?
for attending
Doesn't
students.
say may,
It does not say that. So it does say
it says
will,
will pay.
will pay, right.
So that's the difference. So it does, so either we have to include it in the budget or for up to $500 per student, or we need to rescind the policy.
Well, you could, the board could say this year we can only pay $50 per student towards this and figure out how you.
because we said up to.
You can say will pay up to, so you
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
right, so you could pay $1 or one
much do we
penny.
need?
I mean, so just to, so I think that's
Well,
something that the board should.
That's another question. Is
there.
the 7th grade trip continuing with when Micro potentially retires? So we haven't received any official word. I know he had mentioned that a few years ago that he was retiring. So could we have that information for next meeting as well? About the
Retirement?
7th grade.
About
trip.
7th grade trip,
Mhm.
what's going on for next year for our budget?
Mhm.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to ask about the budget is Algebra 1. Does this include trying to have that for Rutland
So
Town?
that would not impact
Mm.
staffing at
impact
all.
anything.
That would just be reorganization of the schedule,
Mhm.
just assignment. So that doesn't impact.
Great. Anyone have any other comments on the budget before we move on tonight? 'Cause we'll be revisiting it. Do we need to do executive session tonight for
We
it?
Do we-
do have one, oh, not for this, I'm sorry.
Not for
Sorry.
this.
Did we task Lewis with anything?
What?
Did we task him with anything to bring back?
Lewis, I want
So
all
we're
numbers,
getting
everything you
information
got.
from Kelly as to what projects and next time.
And what percentage
and
increase?
how impactful that will be. Can you do that?
And then what, and then 7th grade trip information. And then
What?
what,
Back it up.
5%.
yeah,
You guys want to make like, give him a number, like, bring us back a 3% increase. So whatever that surplus is, give that to Kelly and then he can prioritize how to spend it. So we have an exact number, so we're not talking about nothing next time.
I'm okay with
Is that
that.
okay? You guys are comfortable with bringing a 3% increase? I am,
Let's see what it looks like.
and I'll give a dollar number for the capital improvement plan.
And there's tangibles that, yeah, we're coming with 3% and this is what we're doing
Yeah.
with it.
I was just highly
That
stressed
works
that
for me.
if,
If
good,
that 3% number, if you feel comfortable with that 3%
Yeah.
number, I will bring back the information.
let's do that. I will,
'Cause then we can,
I'm not on the capital expense budget, but if paving the school bus parking lot's on it, I'm gonna axe it. It's just to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, we talked
Just so you
about
guys know.
HVAC
I'm just telling you guys where I am.
and flooring abatement.
and do
Other than
what?
that, I don't wanna,
HVAC,
I'll take the
flooring and
recommendations.
the abatement.
I thought you said something about having a baby and I was like, we are,
Flooring abatement.
so I was like,
That's
that's another conversation, Sarah.
When I was at the super, or the VSBA meeting, that I believe there was a group that will come in and give you an assessment on replacing the HVAC and I think from an efficiency standpoint, and then can help also find grants and funds afterwards. I'll have to try to find the card. Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Please.
I'll look for that. Okay.
And last piece, to just address you, Tim, I think the way I approach it, and I had a great mentor when I first started in Rutland City Public Schools, and the president at the time said, you know, there's always what, you know, we can't control property taxes, CLAs, and you don't approach a business by what a business or a school by what a property taxpayer wants to pay you. I approach it with, what does the school need? I trust that Sarah, Chris put together the budget. They've looked at the demographics. I don't believe we're overstaffed. So on top of that, all we're really bringing back to the taxpayers is we haven't added a single thing. We have appropriate staff. We have great staff. It's inflation and we can't control that. And until someone gets a handle on that, you don't
Want
just
to
say,
keep
well,
everything we got.
healthcare's up, we're cutting 2 teachers and
Mhm.
we're
Why
gonna
don't we
suffer.
just
That's
keep
how I
everything?
approach it, early or late.
Yeah.
If we identified problems, or Chris or Sarah, we looked at the census and said, hey, look, we're gonna be down 20 kids next year, 50 over the next 5, then we gotta start breaking staff down, not because they're bad teachers, but we just don't have the kids anymore. But our numbers are pretty consistent at that 350 number.
I mean,
Tuition we can't control, so that's what I want to bring the taxpayers. They can come back to us and say, hey,
Have our numbers increased over the last 10 years?
about I looked at the census data, it's like 1.2%. Rutland Town.
I was just curious because I feel like there's been more kids coming in, like on our side of town, like, you know, more families, but I don't know age wise what they are.
If you look at the last 20 years in Vermont, population has declined, student population has declined, but Rutland Town, look, you go county by county, town by town, we're up flat to up, which
Yeah.
is Vermont is actually increasing, but we've been pretty consistent.
Yeah, I mean, just around me, I've noticed that there's more people, but I know that they're younger. So I know there's possible little ones, but.
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
like,
If,
so,
if some retired folks decided to move south, you'd see our numbers jump rapidly. I mean,
Yes.
houses don't stay on the market
very long.
very long in Rutland
That's
Town.
correct.
So
Oh, and one of the things that changes over all of those years is codes. And how many people can be in a classroom and different spaces you have to have for different things. So when you look at all that, we're in pretty good shape as far as that goes.
So you take a look at, again, like neighboring, like Chittenden and Mendon, significantly down over the last 20 years. They used to be pretty close to us in population size, kids wise anyways.
Oh, we're like well over 100 more than
Yeah.
that.
So you just look around. So we're, if we get to a point though, and I think that's what Vermont's tasked with, is looking at all the communities and saying, okay,
Consolidation.
Yeah.
And that's where we're.
And people want to live in Rutland Town because of the school.
Louis,
Oh, absolutely.
would you be able to give me the numbers that are updated that you'll be presenting next month before like next
We get
Tuesday,
house
like in a
business.
week? So I can put that
Potentially.
into the circle
revenue.
article? Do you think you'd, or not? Well, if
It's due on
just the
Thursday.
number, not the budget part, but if you were able to, on the summary of changes, if that were up 3%, I just,
Yeah.
If-
so,
if
I
you-
mean,
whatever
we
you
were to
can
look-
give me.
Yeah, so if we were just look at what 3% would be, I can definitely give you that.
something like that. I just, like, what our expense would be and educational spending, I guess, that I could just include that into,
Yeah, so if I could just add, see how much money we have to add in there to get to the 3%.
Yes.
that would be helpful. Thank you. All right, so if the board's ready, I'd like to move on.
People
Yeah,
will.
Rutland Town's not the ordinance.
To contract
Get this guy out.
recommendations. So we have, for informational purposes
Like,
only,
yeah.
several extracurricular contracts for basketball coaches, licensing board member, a peer co-leader, rock climbing coach, who Dennis Van Buren has declined the stipend and wants to donate it to his daughter's class, which I think is
Turn
very
around.
nice. And the second year in a row he's done that.
Is she an eighth grader?
No,
Oh, okay. Just kidding. I know. She's not.
6.
sixth grade. So, so I'll take a motion.
Can
to
I just
approve
ask a
these.
question?
Yep.
Is there not gonna be a seventh grade girls basketball team?
There were not enough students, so I think there was 1 or 2 students only, so they're gonna play up on the 8th grade. So it's a 7th, 8th team. Correct, Kelly?
Yeah, I think there were 4 and then there were 3.
It's
Yeah,
very
it's very
team. It's
small.
only like 8 or 9 girls
Total?
total of 7th and 8th. Yeah, I don't remember the exact makeup, but
Oh, okay.
it was tiny.
I can look though. I'm trying to think where, if you want the numbers, I just reviewed them.
No, you don't. I trust you. I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it's
saw it.
changed though. It has changed because first there was only one 7th grade girl that signed up, and then
Okay,
there
so
was
that was the
more.
news I got. The memo I got.
That's usually what happens. And then on the day you have like the entire
I
class
think
comes
there's
out.
13 8th graders.
Huge team. Holy Lord.
So we have 11 total for 7th and 8th grade girls. There are
Girls.
three girls right now from 7th grade.
And then how many 7th grade boys?
Currently, we have 6. So per athletic handbook, we're going to have a tryout for 6th graders to play up.
So how many positions are you?
Just one. It's
Just one? Just to make
one
it 7?
7th grade boys team.
No, just one
Oh, no.
position.
Just one position, so there'll only be 7 members on that team.
We're for 7th grade boys. There's 6 7th graders, and we're going to have 6th graders try out. Coach Grimes thought maybe 2 to 3,
Okay. So,
depending.
I
I
think
meant
that's a good
coaching
amount.
positions, not positions on the team.
Correct.
He's the assistant.
I was asking players how many positions, and you were answering me coaches. I
Who's
think
point
that's why
guard
I
this
was like,
year?
1. What do you mean?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's
I'm
okay.
like, I have no idea what I'm still not following. Now I got it. Got it.
So there'll be 8 to 9 players on the team, which is a good
Correct.
amount. Perfect. Okay.
And then 8th grade boys, we have 13 players.
That one. Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
Weight
So
class.
I'm still waiting for a motion on the board.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Right?
Aye. It's unanimous. I was hoping to move resignations to executive session, if that's okay. And vacancies are in your packet. As far as the VSBA update, I think Chris did a great job already summarizing that. So I have nothing else to add right now, other than I did attend one of the sessions on the equitable budgeting and received some their slideshow presentation. And they talked a lot about staff's looking at how to fund from in different models of funding. So it was very interesting. So I was glad I attended. We have no policies this evening. Our next meeting is December 10th at 6 p.m. Our January meeting is January 14th at 6 p.m. Both of those are right now at the library at Rutland Town School. And Mary, since you are back, do you know, have they talked about pre-town meeting yet? When that is?
It's on our agenda. We've kept it on, but we, I think we start by asking you for some suggestions. We also have to have the town clerk kind of count the days because we finalize our budget after the pre-town meeting so we can go to print. So she's been a little preoccupied. So we'll probably get more information from her at our next meeting, which is a couple of weeks.
The 19th.
So we were Monday, so it's almost 2 weeks from Tuesday.
Yesterday.
It's a timing thing because of the printing of the town reports.
So we can discuss next meeting if the pre-town meeting is on a day different than our January meeting, we can discuss what that looks like for us. Teacher, staff, community comments before we go into executive session. Okay. Hearing none, we will I'll take a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you, Colin. At 8:23, we'll take a 7-minute break and resume at 8:30.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Tina, Mike has another meeting at the same time as like.
All right, we are now back in public session at 8:42 PM. I will take a motion to accept the resignations from this evening. Thank you, Colin. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. We did, I think that's it for tonight then. Good and welfare.
I was gonna say, you can't skip good and
I have
welfare.
one question.
Yes.
But no,
No, shoot yourself.
I don't think I said it. Wasn't someone supposed to be doing homework? I don't think we signed homework last time.
Oh, it was, oh, for next month you're talking about?
Yeah. We didn't have any updates for this month. I don't think we signed.
Well,
them.
the update this month was the VSBA conference
All right.
and
Yes, who's doing
So
the,
who's next month?
I'm supposed to watch something
Is it you?
in December.
Okay.
But I'm supposed to watch it in December.
All
So.
right.
let me go back.
you guys have homework already?
No,
I think-
no, I strike that. I strike that.
I think it was him.
I will.
No, I think it was
It
him.
may have been.
No.
him. I will.
Give me $50 and I'll watch it
Objection.
for you.
I remove my prior question.
Wait, I can't wait. You need to figure this out.
Yeah.
She's all right. She's playing a game on her phone.
I know. I just want to go home.
Me too.
Oh, you do? Oh,
They
okay.
drove till after midnight last night.
Till after midnight?
Yeah, our meeting went till 11:15 last night.
Are you kidding me?
I'm
At least I was
not.
home. I was on the computer.
I was watching, yeah.
Well, she looks it up. I'll start good and welfare. We finished our third and fourth grade soccer season. So it was a rough start. We had two fourth graders, mostly third graders. Really good gameplay. We lost like the first 8 straight games. But we actually had like better players on the field, just some unlucky goals. But finished the last week really strong with 2 wins, and then the season ended with a jamboree at Otter Valley when we won 3-0, 2-0, 1-0. So one of the last 3 boys played awesome. Kids are resilient. I'm excited for next year because now we're going to be the older cohort. We have, I think, several more second graders coming up.
Oh, yeah.
It's unfortunate we only had 2 fourth graders that played. So I think we're gonna have a really strong third and fourth grade. But watching the boys play together and be my first rendition of working with third and fourth grade kids on a regular basis was eye-opening. Give me a lot of respect for what the teachers do on an 8-hour basis when I had 3-year, I almost threw one of them in the pond and walked up on a daily basis. But it was a blast. So I'm looking forward to it. And it was a great finish to the season. And it's a, parents, other relatives of parents, every game, Rutland Town we're supporting there and just had a blast. So looking forward to watching my kid and the rest of our kids grow. And I know Tim's ahead of me in that, but it was a lot of fun.
No yellow cards. Right?
I didn't get one this year, so that's good. I can't promise that for the rest of the.
I can be your assistant coach next year. I'll keep a team.
Yeah. But also.
My good and welfare is shout out to Miss Norton because the evacuation drill, the drills are stressful in our house, and you guys had the, I think, lockdown or secure the school, and Augie came home and I asked him how it was, and he said that Miss Norton did such a good job, and I was like, yes. So he saw her at the football game, and I think he, just seeing her there, and she's been wonderful for him, but she did such a good job coming from Augie.
That's all you need.
He was proud of her. He was really proud of her.
Like, you did a nice job. Good job. Thank you.
She's looking.
I'm not finding it quickly, so I will get back to you.
Yeah,
I will let the board know.
Work fast.
I agree that someone was, and we'll need to address the rest of the next few months too, so next meeting. But I believe there was someone. I'll have to do a little bit more digging, sorry.
Might have been you, so.
Would have been.
Any good welfare? for
I
you,
will
or-
pass tonight. Just let Mary go home. Go ahead.
Life's just so busy and everything's really good. And for me, this transition period for me, for both kids being in middle school and just seeing the evolution and the growth, socially in the school, and so just so much more independence, for better or worse sometimes. But Rutland Town School has definitely been a large part of that, and the community that we keep. So it's just been a great start. The mornings are really tough. Wes has it down to getting up 12 minutes before we need to be there, so we're getting it. But
You want me to call you too?
no, he's all right. Yeah, really, not yet. But no, things are good, and it's great to see, those classes just grow up and just become young people, so.
Again, I just want to shout out to Mr. Lamar and the green team of Rutland Town School. We were celebrating education and had a whole bunch of other schools there doing productions and things, and the kids did a great job. And I was just so thrilled to see them there. It was great. Kudos. Yeah.
So I did find it. It was Colin that was for November. So
To watch in November,
to watch to report in December, and it was Tim to watch in December and
to
report in
report in
January, and then we need to assign the next few months, so we can do that next meeting. And I will pass on the slideshow from the equitable budgeting talk I went to everyone, so that you have it.
Cool.
Right, I'll take a motion to
Make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody
Meeting adjourned.
good
at
and well for
8:48.
the election results.